right, I got a 2015 Dodge Grand Caravan, and my son hit the rear window with a BB gun, knocked it out, turns it into complete shattered particles. I taped it up to keep it from falling out, taped it on both sides. So I've never done it before. I can't find anything on YouTube telling me how to. Might be because of liability. So the first thing I did is lifted up the tailgate, stuck this thing in here, this screwdriver, and I just popped this out. And it's held on by two little plastic clips that are molded into it, as you can see right there. And after I popped that out, I stuck the screwdriver right down in here and pulled it down. So, what's next? Okay, next I decided to take out these 4 screws right in the back edge. This one, this one, this one, and that one there. This is what they look like. Little short things. 4 of them. All right, after I removed the 4 screws, I found out I could just start pulling this down a little bit. And right here on this corner, there's like a plastic, like a pop rivet that's pushed in there. Not a pop rivet, you know what I mean. It just snapped out of that hole. And so I think I'm going to keep working around the edge and see what else I can do. Then I'll show you what it looks like after I remove it. Okay, I'm getting it a little further. See in the back here, I got it hanging down a little more. So there's more than one of these. Here's this one in the corner. There's one up a little further. There's this one, and then there's some kind of a bracket back there in the back that I'm gonna have to figure out how to release back there. I haven't done that. But that's where I'm at right now. Okay. Actually, my next step was this. I pulled this out a little bit and it popped out. And you can see here on the back of it, it's got more than one connector, and it just started popping out all around here. See if I can get a little light on there. See these connectors, they're all the same. This one. And they fit in these holes like here. This one, this one, this one, this one. Little expansion clips. Everyone's identical like that. So I popped that out here on the corner and it just started pulling down. And I'll go ahead and remove this piece next. Okay, for what it's worth, I removed the whole thing. You can see it in better light. So here it is. And here's the part number on it, if that's of any benefit. Okay, I moved to the driver's side over here, and that other fastener that I couldn't figure out what it was, there it is right there, it just popped off. One big part is just a guide hole, and then the smaller part, yellow, goes up into that hole there. So I popped it off, so I'll probably do the same for the other side. I'm getting closer to getting this whole thing off. It looks like there's some wires, may have to be detached. All right, now this rear tail light connector was I can't figure out how to do it. So instead, I just took those 4 white clips you see sticking up. I just pushed them in and this whole thing drops out. Like this, and so this is how you would remove. I called it tail light. It's inside illuminator light, whatever. Anyway, I'll try to remove this. This shouldn't be hard to take off once I look at it. Okay, I finally got the inside liftgate light off of here. As my dad used to say, whoever invented this ought to be horsewhipped. This little red thing here was the key to it. I had to pull it out, and then that released it, and I was able to, I don't know what I did after that, either pressing this tab down there and pulling it out this way, or I don't even know if that had anything to do with it. But the red one was the key to pull it out. Then I think I squeezed that down here in the back and pulled it off. The other thing I forgot to mention is the whole rear panel is coming out now. It's just held on in the back, and it's kind of under stress right now. I don't know what's holding it. It looks like kind of that grayish piece of plastic with that shiny metal tab back there is holding it on. I have to get my wife out here to hold this thing up. Okay, I finally got this thing off, so you can see where all of the push connectors are that go inside. And then the last thing was this thing right here. This is just a piece of molded plastic, but it was clamped on each side through spring tension. Put that light on there. By this thing right here. Now, move the light back a little bit. And just to let you see what it looks like. And that was, this clip just pinched that piece of plastic right in between right there. So it was just a downward force, just popped it out of there in the back. Now you can see the whole glass. This is going to be a job and a half. There's this rear window heating element that's there. How on earth I'm going to get this thing out? That's another whole ball game. But at least I got to this point. So that's what it should look like. Now the other thing is, if it's going to rain, I could still drive the car around because I don't need this plastic molding on the rear of it to operate the car. So if you're pinched for time, you could do the job up to the point that I've done, shut the gate and still drive it around without the plastic molding. All right, now I got to remove these little electrical connectors for the rear window defroster. I push this up here, this little clip, and when I'm pushing in, I pull it backwards. Man, it's just making a terrible shadow. Come around the other side. Push it up there and then just wiggle it back and forth, and this thing comes off. I just pressed that thing in while I pulled backwards and it came off. Same thing for this side over here. It's got one over there, that's got to come off. Okay, next thing I did is I shut the gate and I removed this little cap here on the windshield wiper, or rear shield wiper. It has a little notch here. You stick a screwdriver in that little notch right there and just start popping that side and it comes off. There's a bolt in there that'll probably have to come out. All right, after I took the black cap off, I used a 1/2-inch socket wrench to remove that nut that was on there. And that black cap holds that nut from unscrewing because the nut was even a little less than finger tight. I think that's so the wiper can move properly. It's probably not supposed to be torqued down hardly at all. But once I got that off there, that nut, then this whole thing came off. Actually, I've already had it off. I just put it back on for the video, but believe me, it popped off. Okay, the next thing I think I'm going to remove is this piece of molding up here at the top, because the window is way inside there and I can't access it with this piece of molding up there on the top along here. And I noticed Let me open the gate up. Inside here, I see a nut right there. I bet you that's holding it in. Here's just a little piece of nylon pin that goes in there for alignment. Here's another nut there. That's my guess is what holds it on. There's another alignment nylon pin. So I'll take those off and see if that allows me to remove the molding. All right. There's a light on that piece of outer molding, and so here's the wires going to it. I just grabbed the edges of this grommet here and popped it off. So there's the wires there. I don't know if there's a connector in there. Maybe it'll be easier to remove once I pull it out a little bit from the outer side. We'll see what that is. So I removed both of these nuts here. They were 10 millimeter. And we'll see what happens. All right, I tried to pull this thing off and it wouldn't come off. This big piece of molding here in the back. And I came around and then I realized, oh, there's a nut here and one down there on the exact same end that I got to remove. So I'll do that and then see if this thing comes off. These little white nylon things that I said were on each end that I thought were just guideposts, they actually need to be squeezed together and then pushed forward to come out, both of them. All right, we're making a little headway here. Here's this top molding piece I'm trying to get off, and it seems to have come detached. It was tricky. And you'll see right in here, see this little nylon thing, and it slides. See if you can tilt it up. Right inside here, this piece would slide over that. So this has to slide straight off of this little fitting to get off of there. And I'll show it to you better once I get it completely off. Also, you can see when the washer water hose going there, it's going to have to be disconnected somewhere. Look at that. That'll have to come off. Those are the last two things holding on. Okay, we got this disconnected, but I decided just to leave it up here. Leave the hose attached, leave this wire attached, because it's not impeding the removal of the window. So I just leave that up here and remove the window. Here's one of these screws that fell out that hold it in.
When do you have two hands?
They kind of slide back in there. I think they slide in and then it comes through the hole somewhere in one of those. Like there's one. Anyway. So I got to remove this window. That's my next step. Taking some kind of a chisel and coming through there. I guess it's held on with some kind of sealant that'll probably have to be scraped off to get this off here. This, by the way, is I put this tape on both sides, this clear packing tape on both sides of the window to keep it from collapsing. But it's just completely shattered, as you can see, finely shattered. Okay, so I'm having to take this glass off. I've done removed the glass, pushed it out, ripped it off. It was a mess. And it's glued to the window or sealed with this black tape, sticky sided on both sides. And it is really tough to get off. I'm having to take a chisel. When I was chiseling it, there was little shards of glass that were shooting at me. So I put a layer of this packing tape on top of it, and that keeps the shards from hitting you. And you'll see kind of about how slow it goes to get this off of here. You would think it would be easier with just going through like kind of rubberized double-sided tape, but it's just hard. It doesn't come off easily. I put a heat gun on it and that didn't do anything because the glass is like a heat insulator. It doesn't really get down to the rubber level, so that didn't work. So it's a slow job. And so you get so far and then you can peel this off. And what I do, I just took these cutters as soon as I get a layer of this stuff off. You got to really wear your safety glasses, which I'm not wearing actually. And because it'll come back and bite you. So there's a piece of it that I took off. It's just like a piece of rubber. It almost looks like a one of those rubberized tie-down straps with a hook on each end, except it's sticky on each side. And so the tape keeps it in control, and it's just one piece at a time. Okay, here I cleaned it up. I used a very sharp wood chisel and took this down. It's just almost paper thin. Took it all off, cleaned it around the edges. As I said, I never removed this. The wires are still hooked. There's the water hose going for the wiper. It's still hooked in place. I just held it up there in the rafters of the garage. And so it's ready to put the glass in. Now the question is, do I just caulk it with some GE silicone rubber, the clear stuff, or do I look for something online that's the actual double-sided tape? This stuff is really tough. It's unbelievable. It's like neoprene rubber or something. It just doesn't come off. It's stuck on there real hard. So anyway, next step is the glass. Here's a little rubber grommet that goes around the no, that's not the one I'm looking for, the circular one. Anyway, here's a little spacer that fell off. I'll have to glue that back on with some silicone rubber. That helps support the glass so it doesn't vibrate. Have to put that back on. There's a little rubber grommet that went around here. I believe you'll install that into the glass first. Compress it, and then it'll just slide right over on top of this. When you it'll slide over on top of this when you mount the glass. The rubber grommet. Okay, I got the window out, and I put this rubber grommet in there so you can see what it looks like. Here's the two heating element contacts here for each side. This is very thin. It just feels fragile, so it's kind of creepy to hold it. I definitely don't want to break it. And what I did is I tied the back hatch down so that it'll just be level up here at the top. Get up here. So it's just sitting level, and I'm gonna have my wife here get on the other side, and we're just gonna sit it down flat on here. Here's these little things that should rest on a little bit, one on each side. So we'll see what happens. I can't film it while I'm doing it because I don't have enough hands. Okay, so I put it's a little confusing. Oh, let me zoom out. There we go. So I put the window on here. It's not glued it. I just wanted to pre-fit it to see where it's at. And it's mostly held in place by this rubber grommet here on the rear window wiper. And there's about, like, I got about a credit card thickness right on each side. And there's considerably more thickness right here at the bottom, more than a credit card thickness there, but this is where it gets the tightest, and it looks about right. When I lift the hatch up, then there's more weight on the window, and up here at the top there was more space here than there is space here on the ends. But when I lift it up, I plan to take this sleeping bag here, spread it out, sit it over the back of the window, and put some weight on top of the sleeping bag. I got 2 jugs of oil, and that will give a downward pressure on this thing to hopefully seal it better at these maximum width places. It'll press that down. So we'll see what happens. So we're heating the sealer. I read online that improves it. It said if you don't heat it, it almost can't come out of the caulk gun. Here's the caulk gun I'm going to use. All right, I'm done caulking. I got about half of this container remaining. That gives you an idea of how much caulk I used. And what I did, I put a sleeping bag and some oil here on the top of it for weight to push that window down while it dries. And it's held in a perfectly horizontal position here. I just tied a rope from here down to there, keeping it horizontal. Let's see if we can see anything on the side here. Probably can't see much, but if I had to do it all over again, I think I would have tried to use at least 3/4 of that caulk. The size of the bead that I put on there could have been a little bit bigger, but I think it's definitely touching in a sufficient amount of places that should hold it. And if there is a leak, I could come in with GE silicone caulk and go around and fill it up further. So overall, feel good about it. Here's my little spacers I put in the end. It's credit card thickness, and I taped it on to hold them in place so they weren't falling out when I was setting the window. But there it is. There's the windshield wiper, and that really helped center it. So we'll let this stuff cure, and my final thoughts on it, there was more work than I expected as far as taking all the molding off of here. That was a lot of work. And so the question is it worth doing it yourself or just taking it to a glass shop to have them do it? The only justification, or the main one I can have for me doing it, is I'm retired. I'm not working, and so I got the time to do it, and whatever I can do, that's that much money less that I have to spend to pay somebody else to do it. So it's justified. If you're a busy guy and making, $50 an hour, you might be better off just paying somebody to do it. All right, thank you. All right, I let this thing cure for over 12 hours, and it's stuck on there very well, but I got a small problem. It's not to the end of the world. I got a little bit too much of a gap in there. See that light? You can see the light through there. I'll make it even more obvious. Put this light up there. Look at that. It's touching in some places. See where it's touching? Other places it's not. Up here at the top, touches almost solidly at the top. So I go down to the bottom, not as much. But this 3M stuff is so good. Well, actually, if I did it all over again, I would have made the bead a little higher, perhaps maybe 5/16 of an inch instead of 1/4. You should use something like this maybe on the edge. I could have clamped these things there like that, and that would have solved that problem. But since I didn't, it's not a deal breaker. I'm going to get some GE silicone caulk. I'm not going to use the same stuff because I cut the end too wide and it won't go in that thin of a crevice. And it is harder to work with I don't want to smear this thing up with that black stuff, but that stuff really sticks. That window's all in there. So I'm going to fill up this area with some GE Clear silicone caulk, keep the water from out of there. So I'm happy. Turned out. I still got to stick all the molding on. Just reverse the procedures of how I took it off. All right. Thank you. Okay, I'm putting it back together. I put on this part first, and I've done got the screws. I just left that hanging out because this light can be snapped on and then just popped into there later. And then this thing down here, this has got those little push-in clips, and to know where I'm supposed to push it in, I went ahead and marked this whole thing, just the opposite side, so I know where to push on the plastic, which could be helpful. And the very top part up here, this thing that I put on up here, right in the middle, on the other side was like one of those little push-in one-way things that I had to destroy to get it out, because there's no way to push it from the inside to get it out. So I bought some of these. They're not the factory original, but they work. It worked perfect. I got it at AutoZone. Took one of those, put it in there, and just pushed right down in the middle up here, and I could hear it go pop, pop. It went in two of those little layers, and that thing's just on there snug. So that worked out. All right, I think that's about it.